$7.5 billion. That's how much retirement money leaves the United States every year. And it's headed to Americans who no longer live here. About 760,000 people right now collect Social Security at a foreign address. Back in 2000, that number was under 400,000, so it's nearly doubled. But here's what got me curious. Right now, 3 countries are running active tax programs targeting rich, retired Americans: Panama, Greece, and Italy. And they're even kind of competing with each other. So I had one question. Why would a country want your grandpa more than it wants like a factory or a billionaire investor?
Some American retirees are finding the good life by going global.
We called our financial advisor and said, hey, if we were to retire right now, how much could we live on? And then we looked for somewhere we could afford.
We would never have been able to stop working. We couldn't live on our Social Security. And that's really what we both wanted. Here, we do it easily, and we have a good standard of life here.
Let's take a step back. A lot of countries have the same problem right now: aging populations and falling birth rates. That means less tax revenue for the government. See, raising a kid into like a tax-paying adult, that costs real money, and it doesn't pay off for almost 2 decades. But a retiree skips all of that. They're already funded. No job competition, no school to pay for. They're just spending on rent, groceries, doctors for 20 or even 30 years straight. So somewhere, a finance ministry runs the numbers and landed on this: importing one wealthy retiree beats raising one new citizen from scratch. And by the way, the supply of these like rich retirees is growing. So in 1974, Gallup found that only 4% of Americans would consider retiring abroad. But a 2024 poll put that at 17% for Americans over 55. And a newer poll found that 44% of US adults have seriously considered leaving. 44%. 14% say they're actively planning it. Okay, so it's clear that there's a growing wave of Americans looking for the exit, which kind of makes sense why these governments are trying really hard to catch them. So let's go over what these countries are actually doing. So Portugal used to be like the golden example that everyone pointed to. Since 2009, it let foreign retirees pay basically nothing on pension income. That lasted for 10 straight years, and tens of thousands of Americans moved to Lisbon. But more recently, Portugal killed it. At the end of 2023, they closed it to new applicants. And the replacement program doesn't even apply to pensions anymore. Now it's like built for scientists and tech researchers. So why the change? Well, Portugal was losing over 1.7 billion euros a year in tax revenue. Also, housing prices in Lisbon were spiking, so the EU was like pressuring them to stop running what looked like a loophole for rich retirees. So they shut it down. This kind of taught me something interesting. Like, this story isn't super black and white. It's not just open the floodgates to rich retirees, because there are clear downsides to this whole thing being like literally too successful. Okay, then there's Panama. Now, Panama's retiree visa has existed since 1987, and it might be the easiest deal on the planet, because all you need is a guaranteed pension of $1,000 a month, and yes, Social Security counts, and that drops to $750 if you buy a $100,000 property. By the way, there's no age minimum, no age maximum, and you get permanent residency immediately, not after some like years-long waiting game. But here's the part that surprised me. So Panama taxes on a territorial basis, which means foreign pension income is not taxed at all, 0%. And to keep your status, you don't even need to live there. You just need to visit like once a year, like one day. So no, these retirees are not abandoning America to make this work. And Panama is not even asking them to be there full time. But it is paying off for them. More than 25,000 American retirees already live in Panama. Okay, the third country here is Greece. So Greece rolled this out more recently in 2020. The pitch is kind of like, move your tax residency here and your foreign income gets taxed at a flat 7%. That covers pension, Social Security, and retirement withdrawals. Compare that to Greece's normal rate, which climbed past 40%. The 7%, by the way, locks in for 15 years. Now, unlike Panama, Greece wants you there. You need at least 183 days a year. That's over half the year. You also can't have been like a Greek tax resident in 5 of the past 6 years. So Greece actually wants people in the country, living in the country, spending money. Okay, now we need to talk about Italy. This one is super interesting. Italy's version has run since 2019. It's a flat 7% on all foreign income, pension, dividends, even IRA withdrawals. That lasts for up to 10 years, but there's a catch. You have to move to a small town in one of the 8 southern regions, places like Sicily, Calabria, or Puglia, because small towns are under a population cap. Italy is trying to repopulate these villages that have been emptying out for decades. Italy recently raised that cap. It opened 74 new towns because the original program was struggling. They were asking these retirees to move to a village with 3,000 people and there was no hospital, and probably those 3,000 people don't speak any English. That's not exactly a hit if you ask me, unless you're like a super introvert. 5 seconds. Most people decide if your pitch or presentation is good in just 5 seconds. Yes, before you even got into your second slide. It's crazy because you can spend hours tweaking bullet points and aligning boxes, but your audience has already made up their mind based on those first 5 seconds. In the past, we all used PowerPoint, but now people are using something called Gamma. Check this out. So instead of starting from a blank page, you just drop your ideas into one of their ready-to-use templates, and it formats the entire thing for you instantly. I've seen it build out pitch decks in minutes, and it ended up looking like an actual design agency made it. I didn't know Gamma could do that. So if you want your decks to actually stand out without spending all night on them, head to gamma.app/signup to check out Gamma and start designing today. Link is also in bio, and now back to the video. Okay, so as I'm doing research for this, I kind of assumed like move abroad, pay 7%, save a fortune. Done. But hold on, it's not that easy. That's not exactly how it works for Americans. Because the US taxes its citizens no matter where they live. It doesn't matter if you haven't touched US soil in like 10 years. You still file a return every year. Forever. There are only a couple countries on Earth that actually do this, by the way. The United States, Eritrea, and North Korea. Everyone else lets you go when you leave. Okay, so say you move to Greece and pay their 7%, you don't automatically just pay 0 to the US. There's a credit that lets you subtract what you paid abroad from what you'd owe here, dollar for dollar. But let's say Greece takes 7% and the US would have taken 22%. That credit wipes out the 7%, so you still owe the other 15 points. Okay, now it's case by case, it's not super simple. And there's another myth that's worth clearing up. See, people mention that if you stay out of the US less than 30 days a year, you can qualify for something. Now that rule is real, but it only applies to people earning a paycheck while working abroad. It has nothing to do with pensions or Social Security. A retiree doesn't even need to count the US days at all. Not for the IRS anyway. But what actually matters is the host country's residency rule. Panama wants 1 day a year. Greece wants over half the year. Okay, so another question now that comes to mind is like, well, why don't people just give up their US passport? Like, if the IRS never stops tracking you, why not just renounce your citizenship? Well, some do actually. Almost 5,000 Americans gave up citizenship in 2025. Now, that's close to a record, but relative to the population, it's pretty small. Also, this isn't like some quiet backdoor hack. You have to show up in person at a US embassy, you take an oath, you also have to pay a fee of like $2,300. Also, if you're like wealthy enough, like your net worth is over $2 million, or you're paying more than about $200,000 a year in taxes, well, you're gonna get hit with an exit tax. They like treat you as if you sold everything the day before you left. So for a retiree living on, let's say, $60,000 a year, that math almost never actually makes sense. Renouncing citizenship is for people with serious money. People who've decided like the permanence of being in America isn't worth it anymore. Okay, the next question I have is like, does the US government actually care that people are doing this? Or does it care that like Greece and Panama are trying to attract its wealthy retirees? I found the answer surprising. Not really. And it comes back to citizenship-based taxation. See, the IRS follows you no matter where you retire. So Washington never actually loses like its claim on you. Not the way France or Germany would. You move to Panama, you pay 0% locally, but the IRS still expects a full return every year. So the tax base doesn't shrink just because the person holding it moved. But where it gets interesting is Congress. There's a quiet fight over whether citizenship-based taxation should exist at all. There's a representative, Darren LaHood, and he has a proposal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank Chairman Guthrie and everyone involved with this piece of legislation.
He wants to switch the US to residence-based taxation. I mean, that's a system that almost every other country uses. Under that system, leaving the country would actually mean leaving the tax system too. Now, who knows if that would actually pass? My guess is it won't. But if it does, because that would be crazy. There's also a smaller fight at the state level because like some states are notorious for refusing to let former residents go. California is a big one. Like if you still hold a driver's license there or own a property or even keep a car registered there, they could still come after you. Some retirees escape the IRS's higher brackets through a foreign tax deal, only to find out that their old home state is still trying to tax them too. So should the US be worried about all this? Not about losing revenue, not under the current system, but there's a real debate happening about whether that system is fair to millions of Americans who are overseas. And how this debate resolves itself, I think, matters like way more than any single country's 7% rate. Okay, let's zoom out for a second. So Portugal was in this race and got knocked out. You've got Greece, you've got Italy, you've got Panama, but there's also Malaysia. It runs a version of this with a savings requirement instead of like your income. And even the UAE is doing it. It's quietly courting them with zero income tax and a long-term residency. Every one of these governments is like watching what the other offers, and they're adjusting their numbers to try and win the next wave. Meanwhile, the average person who's Googling best places to retire abroad is probably just looking at beaches. I mean, they have no idea they're standing inside an actual bidding war. Finance ministries are rewriting tax law to win them, and the IRS is quietly still cashing checks from every one of them, regardless of who wins and where these retirees go. So here's the real question. Which government figured out first that a retiree's full funded life savings are worth more to their economy than their own children? And how far do you think they'll go to like rewrite their own laws to attract your parents or grandparents? Drop your prediction below and let me know like which country do you think wins this by 2030? Also, do you think like the US ever actually will change how it taxes citizens who leave? Maybe I'll do a whole separate video about that. And if you're new here, make sure you're subscribed. It helps tremendously, and I'll see you in the next one.